Hello, this is a tutorial on how to plate things. Plating is the process of taking a thing that you've drawn, either a two-dimensional drawing or a three-dimensional model, and turning that into a thing that fits onto a page that you can then print and give to a carpenter to build. So let's start with talking about the different spaces. So you should already be familiar with model space, which is this infinite void in which we draw the things, where everything is in full scale. So what I mean by that is that if I type 4 feet in model space, that is 4 feet in real life. In paper space, you're typically going to be using scale, which means 1 inch equals a foot, or 3/4 of an inch equals a foot, etc. To get to paper space is very easy. You just click down to one of these tabs down here. There's always going to be at least one tab of paper space by default. You can add another tab by clicking on the plus button, or you can right click on the existing tab and then go to move or copy. Then move to the end, click create a copy, and then duplicate that page. I strongly recommend doing that instead of creating a new one. This takes all of the settings and all of the stuff from one to the next, which just makes life easier. You can, of course, click on this, and when you do, it will create a new layout. But you click to that page, and that layout is on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. None of that other stuff that is over here that we're going to use, none of these tools are pre-installed. You would have to bring in the frame and the corner block. Why go to that trouble? If, however, you want to go to that trouble, you can make this page look like the other page by going to right-clicking on the tab, going to Page Setup Manager, modifying this, and then changing the settings to whatever you want. So since we're here, let's talk about the settings. Typically, we're going to go to an AutoCAD PDF. It's nice to be able to export to PDF, just to kind of save our progress at any moment. Plating definitely can get accidentally screwed up by changing something in the model. And if you're going to be working on something over a long period of time, you absolutely 100% want a PDF copy of whatever it is, the way that it looked at any given moment. So there's that. Export to PDF, friends. The other thing I'm going to change is up here, this plot style table. I'm going to make that one monochrome. Yeah, monochrome. And then there's a couple of options down here that you can absolutely use. I don't usually mess with them. The only one that I will click on occasion is plot transparency. If I'm using transparency as a tool to communicate, I will select that. Otherwise, leave it alone. And there we go. So this thing here, let me go over to this other page. So all of this stuff is stuff that I have created to go on every single page. And that's really just there to help keep things organized and to communicate information that is useful to me. Aya has made one specifically for Once Upon a Mattress. This is the block that I use for everything, and I just updated it to make sure that that it didn't say describe the night or something like that. That said, there is always going to be information here that is useful. So it's a good thing to include it. It's up to the TD what information goes here, but, put it on there. It's cool. Okay. The frame around the page, it's just there for aesthetics. I think it's pretty. I like it. Okay. So the first method that we're going to use to plate this unit, this standard flat, is a viewport. So a viewport can be created by typing viewport. Just hit enter. There's other options that can help things go faster, but let's just start with the basic one. So in this viewport, I typed viewport, created this rectangle, and now I have this literal port, like a porthole, into model space. A port for viewing. A viewport. Okay, I'll stop. So you've got this viewport into model space. So I can come in here and I can move around the same way that I would Otherwise, you can click, you can rotate, you can whatever. And that should be a relatively familiar thing to navigate. Let me show you one thing that kind of sucks about it. If I go in here and I don't realize that I'm in paper space, I double click in here, and now, friends, I'm stuck in paper space. Help, I can't get out. Because you double click and now it's acting like model space. The way to get out of it is to go down here and click model so that it will stop doing that. Anyway, the first thing that I typically will do is come in here and click down in this little bar which scale I would like to use. 3/4 seems like a pretty good size for this page. Once I've done that down here, I'm going to go ahead and bring that in and like frame it the way that I want to. And now if I click on this arrow, you'll notice that it popped up the same options, but when I click on it, it changes the size of the whole thing. And that's the easiest way to do it once you've, kind of established the view that you want. The other thing that you want to do before you start working on anything else is to select this, right click it, and go here to display locked and click yes. What that does is it locks this. So even if I click into it, the thing that changes is the paper space. So I'm no longer scrolling in and out. Scrolling in and out no longer changes the scale. So this just kind of is a nice way to save yourself some time and headache when you accidentally click into a viewport, because you will. Okay, so something to look at here is if I type preview, that's going to give me a preview of what the page is going to look like when plotted. You'll notice that there's this rectangle around the object that I'm drawing. I don't want that rectangle. We're not about that life. So select the viewport, and then if you don't already have one, create a layer for viewports specifically. Mine is bright pink because honestly I inherited it from someone in school and I never bothered to change it. If you look at the layers, you'll notice that the plotter or the printer icon is covered with a red like don't go here logo. That says that this is a non-plotting layer. So if I go back out here and I type preview, you can see that that frame is now gone, which is great. We don't like that frame. Okay. So we have this view. If this was a more complicated piece, we would also want some orthogonal views as well. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to, oh, wait, hang on. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to unlock this one. Display locked, no. Click in, and then rotate this 90 degrees. Oh, there we go. So you'll notice that it kind of scooches all over the place. Then you have to bring it back and, tell it who's boss. Let's close that down a little bit. Close that down a little bit. Something I'm going to do is make sure that those two things are aligned, because if it's an orthogonal projection, it should be. And it is not. So I'm just going to, I think it missed. That's so weird. No, okay. If there's like a line like that where it looks like it might not be touching and then you keep scrolling and it kind of doesn't get any bigger, it's just a computer glitch, it's fine. Okay. So let's go in here and add some dimensions. There's a couple of commands that you can use. The one that people will often default to is the dim command, D-I-M, dimension, dim. And this is a smart tool, or it's intended to be a smart tool. What that means is that there's like 5 or 6 different commands that you can use to dimension things. And the dim command is there to try to intuit which one you want to use and then give you that one immediately. Here's the thing. The dim command works really, really well with a 2-dimensional object, and it gets grumpy AF with a 3-dimensional shape. So there, okay, it worked there, but let's try here. So notice that I'm scrolling over here, and normally the dim command would let me just do that whole line, and it's grumpy, and you can see that it's grumpy because it's like, I don't know what to do. Oh, see, and now it's trying to add onto this one. Oh, just why? Why? So, why is that? Well, like I said, it's because it's a thing that wants a it's a thing that wants a two-dimensional drawing. So to get around it, we can use the older tools that are automatically in 2 dimensions that are going to be a little bit dumber. So the first one is dim linear or dim lin. And to do that, you can click there, and it's going to force it into that orientation. And you'll notice that it was freaking out a lot less. Something else that you can do here is you can say dim lin. Oh no, if you go dim, you'll notice there's a bunch of options down here. So I'm going to use baseline, baseline, and then you select this one, and then you can go through and click on all of these things like that. And you'll notice that neatly bumped out this 8-footer because it's part of the same, like these are all interrelated with one another, which is, nice. Oh, let me show you something that's probably going to pop up that I probably turned off. Oh, yeah, I did turn it off. Oh, that didn't turn it on. So Annotation Monitor is a tool that AutoCAD has so that you can, the idea is that it will automatically update, like AutoCAD will automatically update your dimensions once they're associated with certain points. So here, if I click on this arrow, it says reassociate. So just because I'm curious, let's click reassociate. And now you'll see that it has this X here. Huh, that's interesting. So let's click on that X, and there's an X here. Huh, that's interesting. There. And this didn't go away. I'm fairly certain that the reason for that is because this is a 3-dimensional shape, and that tool is really meant for 2-dimensional objects. Frustrating, right? Here's the thing. You can totally use it if you're going to be using view-based instead of viewports. It's a little happier with view-based. Even with view-based, it gets grumpy. And if you are a person that finds the angry exclamation points infuriating, just turn off Annotation Monitor. We're doing the Lord's work here. Okay, so there's that. Some other things that you might potentially want to do. Let's say I wanted to dimension this angle. Dim angular to dim an angle. Click on one line, click on the other, and now I have an angle. If there's a hole somewhere that you need to dimension, oh, there isn't one here. Let me go punch a hole in this really quick. Let's say, oh. Okay, there's a hole there now. The reason I had to do that ref E thing was because that's a block, which is, awesome. So you can use dim diameter to dimension a hole like that. And that just makes life a lot easier. Okay, so there's some basic stuff. That's probably almost enough to, oh, there's one other thing, let me show you. If you go to the Annotate tab, this is where you can add in, annotations or words or whatnot. In this case, I'm going to use the standard one. You should have that by default. And then you click on multi-leader to use it. And then you can put in a note. So let's say that I want to say 1-inch holdback. You can use all caps. You can use regular typing. I was always taught that all caps, like that in drafting, you use all caps because it's clearer. I think that's a holdover from when people were drafting by hand, and you definitely always wrote in all caps, but whatever. It's less important now that we're using computers to do everything for us. Okay, so that's another thing you could do. We talked about those. If you want to add a leader, you totally can. So right there, add leader, click down there, boom, shakalaka. Annotations, what? Okay, so let's talk about the other stuff that goes up here. I'm going to grab this thing. This is called a reference line, and I'm going to copy it just for, funsies. This can go either above or below. It's up to you. Just be consistent. If it's always above, then it should always be above. If it's going to go below, it should always be below. In this case, I'm going to go above, just because that's where it is on the page. I'm going to scoot that over. So this is a block, and you can change things on the block. I believe I'm in 3/4 inch scale. So this is a thing that I actually like made myself one day when I was bored. So let's go fill out all the things. Note that at least on this one, and I think Aya is using a similar one, this field automatically fills, and this value will be the same as the name of the tab. So just leave that alone. Title, let's say flat frame. Notes. So if you're going to put notes on the individual drawing, then this is a great place to put notes. You know, I might say make one. Use 1x3, 1x3 pine, that kind of thing. That's one place you can do it. You can also do it as a separate box, which I often do if I'm plating on a single page like this. It's up to you. Well, really, it's up to Aya. Do include the view. So this is the rear, or the rear view. And then click OK to close it all out. Nice. So there's that. I'm going to indicate which way goes up stage, because this is, you know, let's say that this is the upstage, or this is the one where I can show upstage. And this again is a block that can be manipulated and, you know, moved around and whatnot. If it matters which direction the grain is running, so let's say the skin here, I want the grain to run in a certain direction. You have a grain indicator here. Again, it's a block. Look at that. This is my favorite part about this particular block. It grows symmetrically. Oh, well done me. That took a long time to figure out how to do, by the way. Lots of Googling. Okay, so something else you might be wondering is, do you always have to show the full model? And the answer is no. Your viewports have a feature wherein you can freeze layers within the viewport and only in the viewport. So if I double click into it and I go over here, you can see there's a column here called viewport freeze, and that is a great place to start trying to turn things, literally turn things off in this window. So if I click on that, this layer has the flat frame on it. So if I click on that, the frame goes away. If I click on skin, the skin goes away. Mine is also set up, my drawing is set up with materials. So let's say that, let me turn that back on. Let's say that I turned off this layer, which is 1/2 inch ply. Notice that the gussets went away as well as the skin. So if you know that you're planning on using this method of plating, it's really, really useful to have thought about that and started building your layers that way. You know, if you know that you want to only show the, you know, the frame and not the skin, you absolutely need to be thinking about that as you're drawing. It just makes life a lot easier if you have that forethought. And if you didn't this time, that's okay. It does make things a little bit more cumbersome. You can go through and kind of put the things that you don't want to see on a layer and keep the things that you do want to see on a different layer, that kind of thing. And it's one of those things that develops over time. I think I didn't really fully comprehend how to do it until like my 4th or 5th show, which is a lot of hours and a lot of plating and a lot of hours trying to plate something that I didn't think about how I was going to plate it in advance, which slowed me down really badly. So there's that. Yeah, I think that's it for this particular style. So this is the view-based style. Oh, there's a couple of other things. It's kind of bad form. Like, people will frown upon you if you are plating something that looks like this. So you definitely want to change that. So if you click on your viewports and you go to properties, you want to do shade plot. I personally like legacy hidden. I think it tends to look pretty good. And just, yeah, I think that'll do it. And I hit preview. Right, so it puts it in a black and white thing. So you're not having to try to parse colors. There's nothing, it looks cleaner. You don't have to worry about a color coded key or something like that. It's just, it just looks better. So that's legacy hidden over here. And you do have to select your viewports in order to do that. Okay, so that's plating with a viewport. Here's the thing about that. You'll notice here that this is just the frame, and I don't have any way of communicating hidden lines. In fact, the only way that I would have to communicate a hidden line is by manually putting in a dashed line. Like, I could come in here and I would have to create, I'd probably do another annotation layer, dotted line. It's just it's a big old thing. That's a pain in the butt. And the only way to get around it is by doing it by hand. Unless you use a different method of plating, which is the one that I use most of the time and which I think is brilliant. And that's called view base. So view base was a thing that AutoCAD stole from Inventor, AutoCAD was purchased by Autodesk. Inventor was purchased by Autodesk, like 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And Inventor had this function called view base, and then Autodesk implemented it into AutoCAD because it's a great idea. And then took another 10 years to work out all the kinks, and now it actually works really well. When I was first learning how to draft in 2018, it was still very buggy. It is significantly better now than it was before. That said, sometimes it's still buggy, and sometimes it will just decide that it's not going to plate something, and that's really, really frustrating. And then you have to do something else. But anyway, so if you type view base, select the object that you're going to draw and type view base, hit enter. It's going to ask you model space or file. You're going to hit model space, and then it's going to say, where do I put this? And then typically what I do is I click to the tab that I want to use, then I click into model space, select the thing, start my view base command, and then that most recent tab will be the one that pops up by default. So do that. And now you see that I've got this little thing here, and I can see that it's probably my flat. So now I'm going to come over here and look and change that view. Oh, look, top view. Let's go with that. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit space bar. And now when I move, you can see that it's giving me these other views. So I can show a top view, I can show a side view, and I can show an ISO. I'm going to hit space bar again to exit out of that command. And now I have a two-dimensional line drawing of those things. And you will notice, dear readers, that there are hidden lines. And the hidden lines by default follow the conventions that have been laid out for hidden lines from architects and things. Look at that. It's great. It gives me the information that I want. It's clean. There's no fussing with the viewport. It's very, very easy to create other views. Oh, just look at that. Ortho right out of the box. Okay. And now we can use, let me show you this first. So you might be saying, well, that's kind of a pain if I need to change anything. Aha, it has accounted for that. You can change your scale very easily. It's right there. Look at that. Nice. You can, let's say that you were plating this and you didn't want to use, you didn't want to include the skin. Well, I can go to edit view and I can say model space selection. I can deselect that skin, return to the layout by hitting enter, and boom, there we are. The skin is gone. Look at that. Oh, what a thing of beauty. Something that I will say, or will point out, is that sometimes the hidden lines don't show very well. Like right here, this is a hidden line situation. That's that funky hole that we drilled in the top over here, right there. And you can't tell that that's a hidden line because there's not enough space for it to be a dashed line, according to AutoCAD. You can fuss with that, or you can turn off hidden line in this particular, you can turn off hidden line in this view on its own. Let's say that's visible lines only. And you'll notice that this, when you click into edit view here, this is giving you another bit of information, and that is visible and hidden lines, and then in parentheses from parent. So let's talk about that. So all four of these drawings are related, or all four of these views are related. The first one that you drop is going to be the parent view. So that is the one that all the rest of these are going to by default take their settings. If you want this one to be to have a certain setting, let's say you want hidden lines here, but I don't want hidden lines here, I can just click into here and I can go edit view, visible lines, and now this is only visible lines. Let's say that this doesn't really fit on my page very nicely, so maybe I'm going to shrink it a little bit. Now it's in 1/2 inch. Look at that. And that is able to change without adjusting any of this. Also remember how we had to like line everything up? This by default will not let you move out of alignment. You can move all of them by moving the parent. So the child views move with the parent view. And everything just kind of stays all nice and locked together, which is great. The other thing that's awesome is that your dim command goes from kind of milquetoast, pretty meh, to kick-ass. So where once there was drama, there is now ease of use. So this is all staying within my dim command. I just started the baseline tool. Click, click, click. Nice and easy. I'm still inside my dim command, like I'm still in the same command, friends. We click here, we click here. Oh, I'm in a baseline. All right, so now I click here, I click here. 45, look at that, what a champ. Let's say I'm over here and I click on this thing. And it just automatically recognizes that I'm probably wanting to dimension the diameter of that. What a guy, look at that. So that dim command is very much built for this two-dimensional view, this two-dimensional space. And it can intuit what you're trying to do. And when you're using ViewBase, dim goes from very sad to really awesome, really, really fast. Yeah, it's just a great option. And you'll notice something else. I have more views here that I can work with. I have this fun little thing that shows exactly what the thing is going to look like in 3 dimensions or in an isometric drawing. And it took me like 1.5 minutes. Whereas that other thing, like just to set up the viewports took me, I don't know, a couple of minutes. ViewBase. It's very fast. That's where it's at. Okay. So there's that. All of the other stuff is the same, but the way that you get the thing onto the page using ViewBase is very, very helpful. One downside is that you don't have the option to turn things on and off. So your layer structure does tend to kind of want to be different. I think getting too deep into that will just be a distraction and just be kind of confusing, so I'm not going to. But you know, the way that you select and deselect things is different here. Let's say that I do want to show the skin on this. I have to go in. Oh, no, I already showed you that. I don't have to show you that again. Okay, so that's the tutorial part of this whole thing. Let's take a look at some examples. And they're on Canvas, so let's go there. So the first set of examples is let's look at this one. These aren't currently on Canvas that you have access to, but I'm going to put a folder in the Dropbox, or sorry, in the drive with resources where this will be. So this is a single sheet, and this is the entire unit on a single sheet. That's because this piece of paper is 24 inches by 36 inches. Like, it's a very large piece of paper. Therefore, all of this stuff can fit easily onto one sheet. But some things that you'll notice, number one is that I put the reference lines underneath, and that the notes go with the drawing that they are underneath. The reason for that is because you've got so many individual pieces on this, so it's very important that the notes are with that drawing right there individually. Another thing you'll notice is that this is all very neat. This is a lot of dimensions, and they're all very neat and laid out. You know exactly where to look for the dimension. You're not trying to, you don't have any dimensions above or below or whatever. All of the dimensions are on the same sides for, for ease of use and clarity. You'll notice here that this is in fact an orthographic projection. This is a front view with a top view. This is mislabeled. That should say top then front. So this reference line can apply to multiple views, and it's really, the reference line refers to the part, not the view, if that makes any sense. This is an exploded assembly view. Making these is a pain in the butt, but dang, they're worth it. And then this is your assembly view, fully completed. And I included both the ISO, like the Southwest ISO, and then the rear view of that to show all of those terminations on both sides, so the bolt connections and whatnot. It's just really, it's useful, especially here because this is kind of a weird thing. Let's close that out. Let's go to this one. This is a multi-page document, so it's going to take longer. So you see here there's more of the same. I've got some proper labeling here going on. Nice. Well done, me. You'll notice here that the things have changed a little bit. So top and front, bottom and front. Really, this should be front then bottom. Mislabeling. Not great. More of the same, at least on this sheet. But when you go to the next sheet, here's a different assembly, and this is something that's a much larger unit. And still, though, you notice that everything is nice and clean. Even though there's a whole lot of information on here, and the thing that I'm drawing is very large, the information is clean and clear. All of these line up. These are centered on each other. You'll notice that these are in the order that they are over here. So this piece is that piece. 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 Like, all of that stuff is there in a neat and orderly fashion. Things are clearly annotated, like the reference lines are super clear. There's notes where there need to be notes. Strut channel slot opens down. Places that are calling out information that you need that isn't abundantly clear from the drawing. The information is complete but concise, and there's even a level of detail here that's really lovely, like the fact that we've got the McMaster numbers here as well. Like, all of this stuff is just another layer of detail and attention to detail that is really, really useful and helpful. You'll also notice that over here we have a revisions page. So what the revision was and when the revision was made, which is really helpful and useful. You won't necessarily always have that, and it really kind of depends on what you're doing and why. Something to note about this is that this was very heavily annotated by our head carpenter, and when I first plated this, all of these were in a different order. Like, I basically just picked a thing and was like, I'm gonna put it right there. And he looked at it and he went, why would you do that? And I went, why would I do what? And he said, why wouldn't you put them in the order that they appear on the drawing? And I went, because I didn't think about it. And that's okay. Like, you don't think about those things unless you're a person that spends a lot of time looking at them. And, that was the advantage of having his insight, because he was a person that spent a lot of time looking at these drawings, and he was able to call out that that was a thing that was confusing. Okay. This is a different style of plating. So this is 11 by 17 sheets. You'll notice that we have our reference lines above instead of below. That's just the style for this particular sheet. It's not right or wrong, it's just different. And one thing to point out is these reference lines. So you'll notice here that it's going to be a circle with a line through it, and then there'll be a single number and then a larger number on the bottom. The single number is going to be the view number. So this corresponds to this, the top half of the circle here. The bottom number corresponds to the page number, which is in the bottom corner. So here, so 0100. So let's look for one like, so right here, 01 over 01-03. We're going to scroll down until we find 03. And here is the part that was referenced there. And you can see that, like, even though this is, there's less, it's a smaller page, so there's less information, the information is still neat and orderly and clear. One thing to note is that the dimensions are separated by when you're going to be pulling those dimensions. So what I mean by that is that, let's say that I'm the carpenter and I'm going to build this thing. So I've cut the thing, great, that's easy enough. And now I have all of the dimensions for the holes on one side. So I can just pull my tape and go, okay, I need to do 3 and 11 and 5/8, 6, 5 and 5/8, 10, blah, 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 all the way down. So all of the dimensions that you need when you're pulling your tape to drill holes are together. And then you've drilled all your holes, and now you're getting ready to put in all of these little toggles, and you go, okay, I've pulled my tape and I need toggles at these dimensions here. So group dimensions with dimensions that make sense. Like things go with like things. You'll notice in this situation, I've started using a directional arrow to indicate which way is upstage. This is really, really important in this situation because this thing is so, like, it's so precise, and it looks, and it has to go in a certain orientation, which means that it's important which way is upstage and which way is up, because, like, this is pretty much symmetrical up and down, so I need to know which way is up and I need to know which way is on stage. You know, and you've got all this other information here as well. This is all, you know, relatively good plating. Honestly, most of this is pretty good plating. There's definitely some small errors, but this was, you know, this is a solid drawing package. A good drawing package will have an overview. Something to note, like on this one, is that the overview is at the very end, and you might be going, why though? Why is it at the end? And the overview is at the end because I wasn't done drawing the tower when I had to turn in those first plates. So this plate was turned in way before this was ever finished. And that was just because, like, they were like, you need to get something on the floor. And I was like, great, I've designed this thing. This can go to the floor first. So this came in much, much later. You'll notice that this one is in color. I don't know why I left it in color, but I did. I think in this case, it really did help communicate different things. You know, colors are fine if they're there for a purpose and if they're not, like, ridiculously esoteric. Like, my personal opinion about that, and people will definitely disagree with me, is that if you need a legend in order to read your drawing, at least for like a construction drawing, then you're already failing. Because it's a thing that your carpenter is going to have to go reference that they aren't going to immediately understand. Particularly if it's not a group of people that are always working with the same thing. If you've established that with your carpenters and you don't have a lot of turnover, then okay, fine, I guess it's fine. If you are like us, where you have inexperienced carpenters who are struggling to read the drawings anyway, like, color coding them just sounds like a nightmare. So anyway, there's that. You can see here that transparency was a thing that I was using to communicate. And yeah, there you go. These ref lines, reference points here, you can see that the numbering system is a little bit different. You know, if I go to 7, 413, well, where's 413? 414, 413, I go to 7. Look at that. So there's a thing that I'm referencing that is a complete built thing that's referenced on a different page down here. And you can barely see it, but it's back there because it slots inside of this. So anyway, there's that. I'm going to close that out. I will put all of these into a folder so that you can take a look at them if you'd like. And, let me know if you have questions, or, even if you want to, like, if you're having trouble, just hop on Discord and I can hop on as well and we can figure it out together. Cool. Have a good night.